Yes, now the ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee, Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff of California. Congressman, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Wolf.
So you're a lawyer. You're also a former federal prosecutor. Is it possible? Do you believe that President Trump was in the dark about this $130,000 payment that the president's private attorney, Michael Cohen, made to Stormy Daniels?
That doesn't seem the least bit plausible that an attorney for a client would go pay hush money and never inform the client about it. It seems far more credible, frankly, that Donald Trump was well aware of this. And it's also, I think, strange credulity to think that Michael Cohen didn't expect to get reimbursed for this. To get reimbursed for this. And it was in order to hide this allegation during the campaign. That's a campaign expenditure and an FEC violation.
That's an in-kind campaign contribution, supposedly.
Exactly. But the bigger issue, I think, is this is a president who ran on a campaign of draining the swamp. And here he is alleged to have had an affair with a porn star, paid hush money, and now lying about it. That's not how you drain a swamp. And coupled with the other allegations of Jared Kushner working on deals in the White House and Mike Flynn working on deals during the inauguration and administration people flying first class and on private jets on these expenditures, they're not draining the swamp. If anything, they're licensing the swamp and branding it with great big gold letters. That's a real political problem for the White House, for the president. And that may be the lasting impact of the whole Stormy Daniels thing, and that is they have completely ceded the ground when it comes to family values. Voters who care about family values can't possibly support this president or what he stands for.
Because if it was, in fact, $130,000 in-kind campaign contribution, not formally disclosed to the FEC, you're supposed to disclose campaign contributions, that's a crime, and that's a felony.
It would be a crime. Now, I think a very similar crime was alleged against John Edwards, and that prosecution was unsuccessful. So it may be one of those crimes that's difficult to prosecute. And that's one of the reasons why I think the political consequences may be far more significant than the legal ones. But here, I think it's part of a pattern with the president, and that is he continually emphasizes that the significant thing is denying things. So with respect to Roy Moore, he thought it was important to point out Roy Moore denies the allegations. Rob Porter denies the allegations. As long as you deny it, Wolf, it didn't happen. And so the president denies knowing about this, denies it ever happened. It's part of a pattern. Yeah,
they're not necessarily denying the affair. I think they're denying that there was any knowledge of a payment, which is a bit of a nuance there.
You probably appreciate the nuances more than I do. It seems to me they were denying everything, but I may be wrong.
The two of your Democratic colleagues, Democratic Congressman Ted Lieu and Congresswoman Kathleen Rice, they say they want the FBI to investigate this whole thing to see if federal election laws were in fact violated. Do you agree with them?
I would recommend the FBI treat this in the same way they have looked at similar issues in the past. However they treated this with respect to John Edwards, they ought to do it the same way with respect to Donald Trump. They should use the same standard to determine whether it rises to the level of opening a criminal investigation. I'm just not in the weeds enough to know on this particular issue whether that's been reached at this point.
You want to call back Michael Cohen to come before your committee and ask him questions about this?
Well, we have wanted to have Michael Cohen come back and answer a host of other questions, as well as present documents. So we've asked for his travel records, stuff that we could use, frankly, to corroborate or disprove some of the allegations that have been made in terms of his involvement. So we would like him back on other issues. Whether this is really pertinent to the Russia inquiry or not, I'm not sure that it is. But there are plenty of other questions that we still have unanswered.
Potentially, could this, if there was criminal, let's say, could this potentially fall into the lap of the special counsel Robert Mueller? Because if you take a look at the instructions he received when he took the job, any links, of course, between the Russian government and individuals associated with the campaign of President Donald Trump, and any matters that arose or may arise directly from the investigation, and any other matters within the scope.
In theory, yes. But as a practical matter, I think Bob Mueller is going to be far more interested in what was Michael Cohen's involvement in trying to get a Russia-Trump tower going during the campaign at a time when the president denied having any interests or deals or anything in Russia. What was Michael Cohen's involvement and travel in Europe? And is there any corroboration of allegations Christopher Steele made or reported in terms of his role during the campaign vis-a-vis the Russians? That's going to be of much more of the core interest of Bob Mueller. I would think that, as we have seen with other issues that, yes, have arisen, but may not be central to the Russia story, those may be taken by other prosecutors. So there have been allegations, for example, that there's an investigation of the Eastern District of New York looking at EB-5 visa issues affiliated with Kushner properties. You could say that arises in the Russia investigation as well, but I think prudentially, Bob Mueller is more likely to say these other prosecutors should handle those allegations.
Let me ask you about George Nader. He's an American businessman who has ties with the United Arab Emirates. There was a meeting that apparently now is being investigated by the special counsel, Robert Mueller, that he had with Trump associates, UAE officials, and a Russian banker. What type of information do you think Mueller is looking for here?
Well, I think the same information we are, and that is, so was there this clandestine meeting in December in Trump Tower with Jared Kushner and George Nader and Steve Bannon and others? And what was the purpose of it? Was this as a way of a back channel to Russia? Was this a way of working on a business deal? Was there a discussion of a meeting in the Seychelles, which we would learn that Erik Prince met in the Seychelles with the Crown Prince of UAE and then had a meeting with a Russian state banker? Was that the result of this initial meeting? These are questions we have. I imagine they're questions Bob Mueller has. It certainly is inconsistent, I think, with parts of the testimony of Erik Prince before our committee. Now, it's inconsistent with the reported allegations. So I don't know which is correct, but we certainly want to get to the bottom of it. If indeed this George Nader was at the meeting in the Seychelles with Erik Prince, with this Russian banker, with the Crown Prince, that's very different.
So who do you believe in this?
Well, I don't know who to believe at this point. Erik Prince's testimony is public, and the public can judge it, but clearly the impression he wanted to give is he wasn't there representing either the Trump transition or Trump campaign or the Trump administration. The meeting with the Russian banker was purely fortuitous. He didn't know it was going to happen. That's a very different story than what is being reported about George Nader, and we ought to find out which is true.
Yeah, George Nader apparently is not cooperating fully with the Mueller investigation.
That's what I'm saying, yes.
That's what we're hearing.
In terms of the reporting.
All right, thanks very much.